This episode is brought to you by Amazon. The holidays are here, and you know what that means? It's time to get your friends and family the gifts they deserve. Take the stress out of shopping with Amazon's great deals and low prices on a huge range of items from toys to tech and much more. Whoever you're gifting for, Amazon has great prices on everything you need this holiday season. Shop Amazon for all your gifting needs.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
Welcome. It's Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. The phone number, should you wish to be on the program, 877-973-7425. I actually really need your attention for this, and I need you to pay attention. Video started circulating on Instagram yesterday from a man with the Florida reserves. He's in North Carolina helping rescue people. And he was making a point about bureaucratic infighting slowing down the rescue of people. And some decided to twist it into the Biden administration wants people to die. I'm yet again disturbed at the number of people who are committed to pushing lies based on people's biases towards the other side politically so that they might believe the worst about them. Given the choice between maliciousness and incompetence, please always go with incompetence. No one wants the people of North Carolina to die. In fact, given that it is a swing state, Joe Biden has every incentive to pour every resource imaginable into it to show he's capable of helping, to help Kamala Harris. Joe Biden is doing a flyby of North Carolina today to inspect the damage from the air. They have asked him. This is not a moment to attack the president. The state of North Carolina, local officials have pleaded with Joe Biden, please do not land. There is only one road in and out of Asheville, North Carolina. It is the road that runs from the airport to Asheville, North Carolina. And should you land in Asheville, North Carolina, because of the security protocols of dealing with the President of the United States, they will have to shut down the only way in and out of Asheville, North Carolina. So please, Mr. President, do not come. Asheville, North Carolina looks like a war zone. And some businessmen there are saying, you know what, we're out, we're done. There's a bureaucratic infighting taking place, and this goes back to that Instagram video. Man, I can't play it. There's a lot of profanity. He's very frustrated, and it would just be like beep, 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 beep the whole way through. So not worth it to play the audio. But it is a disaster. There are people trapped on mountains. My wife and I know someone we used to go to church with. She was in just north of Asheville, I think near Brevard, and had to be rescued off a mountaintop by helicopter by the Army Reserves. She and a group of women. They were on a mountaintop. They were in a cabin. They were at a retreat, and the roads going up the mountain were washed away. There was no way off the mountain, and there were too many trees down. Had to be rescued by helicopter. What's happening is a lot of Americans have decided that they can help because they have helicopters. And they're willing to go to North Carolina and use their helicopters to help. And the bureaucrats have decided, well, what if we have so many helicopters in the air that they collide with each other? We can't have that. So we better tell people you're not allowed to bring your private helicopters, as opposed to Oh, helicopter pilots. They live in crowded space. They know how to see out the window, and they can avoid hitting each other. The other issue is the bureaucrats are thinking, well, they don't really know how to rescue. So what if they start to hover and land, and then somebody's going to rescue them? Maybe let them take their chances. The bureaucrats are making it impossible. In Greenville, South Carolina, a lady went to a store in Greenville, South Carolina, an elderly lady, to fill up a propane tank. And the local grocery store, or the local hardware store rather, would not allow her to fill up the tank because the tank's sticker had expired. I didn't know this until I started refilling propane tanks. If you can't get a new one, you can refill one, and they've got a sticker on them, and the sticker date is expired. They won't fill it up. Multiple people in line to get their propane tanks filled up asked the hardware store to please fill up this woman's propane tank. She clearly needs it, and they have no propane tanks to give her or sell to her, so fill it up. And the man said, I can't, because if I do, and the state of South Carolina finds out about it, we'll lose our ability to dispense propane for 6 months. So he didn't do it. In the middle of a hurricane, they're not willing to waive those regulations. The bureaucrats willing to shut him down for these sorts of things, to be very law and order about these things, to give no discretion. Heavy-handed bureaucrats are a danger at all times, particularly in natural disaster. This is a terrible situation. The death toll is going to go up. There are people in North Carolina who are trapped in the mountains with no way out. They will run out of water. They will run out of food. They will die. They will get desperate, some of them, and try to go off the mountains themselves to their peril. And the bureaucrats are so worried about the helicopter pilots possibly injuring each other or others that they would rather these people starve to death and die than to take the chance that maybe a civilian helicopter pilot who regularly flies helicopters might be able to land in a clearing and get someone on the helicopter and get them off the mountaintop. Rather they die on the mountain than risk dying in the civilian helicopter. Really, that's kind of where we are at this point. The local officials in certain counties, local sheriff's departments, in fact, have instructed, this is what the man on Instagram was venting about, telling them that, no, the state government says you're not allowed to do this. Turns out the state government in North Carolina is perfectly happy to have the civilians helping. What's notable is that the helicopters at Fort Bragg have not been commissioned into the rescue effort yet. According to several North Carolina congressmen, they're begging Joe Biden to order the Army to assist in the rescue. This isn't posse comitatus. It's not law enforcement. It's a rescue operation in the United States. Allow the American military at Fort Bragg to participate. The bureaucrats are getting in the way of saving people's lives. This is what happened in Katrina. And it takes a very strong governor like Ron DeSantis to crack heads, skulls, and get people working together. If you are willing to help, we have long time partnered with the Salvation Army, and they have boots on the ground in North Carolina. They're feeding people. They're cutting trees down. They're doing everything they can. There's some great nonprofits up there. Samaritan's Purse is helping others. We've always partnered with the Salvation Army. I've gotten a lot of requests from, actually several of my advertisers reached out and said, would you partner with us? And I've had to say, no, we've got this arrangement with the Salvation Army, and I'm happy to work with the Salvation Army. But there are so many great opportunities out there to donate. But if you text the word donate to 33777, I'll send you a link to the Salvation Army's Hurricane Helene portal to donate. Because remember, we're focusing on North Carolina right now because there are a lot of people trapped in North Carolina. But this disaster is in Georgia, it's in South Carolina, it's in Tennessee, it's in Virginia, it's in Florida. Florida has a great ground operation because they deal with hurricanes pretty regularly. Georgia is okay. The Georgia Power and the EMCs are getting the power back on. Augusta, Georgia is in serious need. In fact, my local church here in Middle Georgia is doing a relief convoy over to Augusta, Georgia, because people are running out of bottled water and tarps and supplies. And the roads are, in some cases, only just passable, so they're behind on supply deliveries. But North Carolina is absolutely the focus. In North Carolina right now, there are people on mountains who cannot get off of the mountains. There are people in towns, and all of the roads into the towns no longer exist, so they can't leave the towns. And there are bureaucrats who are so concerned with making sure the regulations are followed that they're hampering and hindering relief efforts in turf wars over which agency is in charge. And everybody means well. There's no maliciousness here. Everyone means well. Everyone's trying to do their job, and the problem is they're stepping on each other, and they're hiding behind regulation instead of using their common sense. Because at the end of the day, bureaucracy becomes incompetent. There's not maliciousness here. There's incompetence. And the incompetence comes out in a bureaucratic turf war where each agency decides it wants to be in control. Right now, God's in control. Y'all need to get these helicopters in the air and let them out there. And if the President of the United States can do so, order the American military at Fort Bragg and elsewhere to get out there and start helping people. We've got pilots in the military who can do this. Florida has sent its Air National Guard and others up there to help. Other states have sent their National Guard to help. They are moving as quickly as they can up these mountains, but there are some people in rural areas where they're literally having to fly planes and helicopters and look for smoke signals or SOS. Literally, smoke signals are SOS as best they can. But, you know, the mountains in the east are different from the mountains in the west. The high Rockies don't have big tree coverage. In the east and the Appalachia, a lot of those mountains are covered in trees. It makes rescue more difficult. It makes seeing people in distress more difficult. But there needs to be help. People got to put aside their egos. And Joe Biden needs to lead. And this is part of the problem with the President of the United States right now is he's not fit to lead. He's not fit to marshal the resources of the government. He's not fit to be the moral, authoritative voice demanding quick action because he can't do that. He is physically, mentally incapable of doing that. And yet the Democrats won't invoke the 25th Amendment. They won't push him aside. They won't elevate Kamala Harris. They probably should. It'd probably help her politically too. But they won't do it. And we need the president. We need Roy Cooper, the governor of North Carolina, to make it very clear that anyone who can help, please come help. And do the help you can. What do you got to lose? A life on a mountainside if we don't have enough people in North Carolina helping. I just go back to the media's treatment of George W. Bush with Katrina. And all I can think is, you know, if this was Donald Trump and not Joe Biden, the media would be more assertive and more aggressive. But because it's Joe Biden and this is a swing state, so much of the media wants to do no harm. They covered for Joe Biden for as long as they could, and now they'll cover up as much as they can the disaster in North Carolina, the bureaucratic incompetence, because God forbid it spill over into a backlash against Kamala Harris. People's lives are on the line. Get those helicopters in the air. Save as many people as you can. It's what we need. If you can help, text the word donate to 33777. I'll send you back a link to the Salvation Army. Every dollar, there's no overhead cost here. Every dollar is going to go to relief for Hurricane Katrina. Text the word donate to 33777. People are really in need right now. Shelters are running out of food and water. They're overwhelmed with people. They underestimated the amount of people, the amount of destruction up there. The National Weather Service models had that storm moving further to the west. It hit them unexpected. The shelters are overwhelmed. People are shell-shocked. They feel like they've been through a war zone, many of them stuck. If you can text donate to 33777, I'll send you back the Salvation Army link, and dollar for dollar, that money will go to a great cause of helping the people in these states, particularly in North Carolina right now, who are still stuck and in need of help.
Blinds.com Cyber Monday Last Chance is happening now. Don't miss out on up to 45% off site-wide. A Blinds.com design expert can help you make the perfect selection on your schedule. We can handle everything from measure to your whole home installed for one low cost. With over 25 million windows covered, Blinds.com is the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings. Save up to 45% site-wide, plus a free professional measure right now at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. One of the things that J.D. Vance did so great in last night's debate is he kept bringing it back to Kamala Harris. Over and over and over again, he would bring it back to Kamala Harris. This is just another great example.
To be laughable. So that's where we're at. Pass the bill, she'll sign it.
Governor, your time is up. Senator, the question was, will you separate parents from their children, even if their kids are U.S. citizens? You have 1 minute.
Margaret, my point is that we already have massive child separations thanks to Kamala Harris's open border. And I didn't accuse Kamala Harris of inviting drug mules. I said that she enabled the Mexican drug cartels to operate freely in this country. And we know that they use children as drug mules. And it is a disgrace, and it has to stop. Look, I think what Tim said just doesn't pass the smell test. For 3 years, Kamala Harris went out bragging that she was going to undo Donald Trump's border policy. She did exactly that. We had a record number of illegal crossings. We had a record number of fentanyl coming into our country. And now that she's running for president, or a few months before, she says that somehow she got religion and cared a lot about a piece of legislation. The only thing that she did when she became the vice president, when she became the appointed border czar, was to undo 94 Donald Trump executive actions that opened the border. This problem is leading to massive problems in the United States of America. Parents who can't afford health care, schools that are overwhelmed. It's got to stop, and it will when Donald Trump is president again.
Senator, your time is up.
Time and time again, he just kept bringing it back to Kamala Harris. Time and time again. And it's got to have an impact. But again, this is a vice presidential debate in a very tight election. It can move some people at the margins. Maybe I'm just not sure that it's as impactful. And I've had people email me and say, well, what about Sarah Palin, the media? Yeah, they can define the vice presidents in these debates, and they can poke fun at them. But when people go vote, they were voting for Barack Obama versus John McCain, Barack Obama versus Mitt Romney, Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump, Joe Biden versus Donald Trump, Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump. They're not voting for J.D. Vance. They're not voting for Tim Walz. Vance has a highly negative opinion rating right now, and he came across very likable on the debate stage last night. In fact, much of the media was grumbling. I can't believe he's so two-faced. He came across as so likable. That's not him. How dare he come across as such a likable person on stage? They just couldn't help this. They were so upset about Tim Walz just blowing it on the debate stage. And Walz's answer, even with a friendly moderator, Walz's answer about Tiananmen Square was just so bad. He's just not good at this stuff. Also sheltered from the press. More on that when we come back. Right now, Vision Computers could really help you if you've got computer troubles. If you call them at 404-COMPUTE or go to visioncomputers.com, they can actually be your tech support solution for your office, for your company, for yourself. If you're an independent contractor, you need someone to help with your computers and make sure you're always up and running, call them at 404-COMPUTE for $179 a year, not a month, but a year. They can be your tech support solution. Not only that, but they can build you computers that are going to last. They work with you on what you actually need and want, so you're not upgrading all the time. So much better costs as well than the one-size-fits-all at the big box store. Go to visioncomputers.com. They're your hands-on support solution. They build you the computer. 404-COMPUTE. If you call them and tell them I sent you, say Eric sent me, you're going to get an even better deal. 404-COMPUTE or visioncomputers.com. They'll keep you up and running. They'll be your tech support solution. They'll build you a great machine if you need one. 404-COMPUTE or visioncomputers.com. Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome. It's Eric Erickson here. Let me just step back at a higher altitude level and survey the landscape right now on Tim Walz's performance last night in that debate. It was bad enough that a lot of Democrats have moved on to it's not going to matter. And they're probably right that it's not going to matter. I think the top line matters the most, Trump versus Harris, and all of the data points to a Trump victory, and I can't emphasize that enough. There are so many Democrats who are convinced Donald Trump can't win. The underlying data suggests that he will. Let me just review for you some of the data here. Let me pull it back up. I just had it loaded a minute ago. Let me pull this up here because you've got to be able to understand where the data actually is right now. And courtesy John Ellis on compiling a lot of this stuff. Right now, 60% of Americans believe the nation is headed on the wrong track. 65% of registered voters believe the nation is in the wrong track. Nearly all Gallup measures that have shown some relationship to past presidential election outcomes or speak to current perceptions of the candidates favor the GOP right now. Nearly identical percentages of Americans rate Donald Trump and Kamala Harris favorably. Donald Trump actually is slightly viewed as more favorable than Kamala Harris. Yes, I know. 60% of independents have an unfavorable opinion of Kamala Harris. Voters across the Sun Belt states, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, they say Donald Trump improved their lives when he was president. They're not sure that Kamala Harris could. As immigration has grown in this country, the number of people who want mass deportations has surged. 55% of Americans for the first time in years want less immigration. Last year, over 70,000 Americans died from fentanyl and synthetic opioids. 40% of Americans know someone who has died, and Americans tie this to the border crisis and to the Biden administration. 86% of Republicans and 58% of Democrats strongly support mass deportation of undocumented immigrants. Latino voters are moving towards the GOP. A survey of 1,000 Latino registered voters found Harris leads Trump 54-40. Joe Biden led Trump 36 points. Harris and Trump are tied in Pennsylvania. Harris has a narrow lead against Donald Trump, but most Pennsylvania voters believe Donald Trump can handle the economy better than Kamala Harris, and it's their number one issue. Pennsylvania has more registered Democrats than Republicans, but the split has narrowed to a 44-40 split. Republicans added 12,600 more people to their list of registered voters. Democrats only added 8,000. All of this data suggests that Donald Trump should win the election. There is corollary data, however, you do have to know about. And the corollary data is people don't trust Donald Trump. They don't like Donald Trump. People believe Donald Trump, if he got into office, would not want to leave office. People believe Donald Trump organized an insurrection against the United States government, and people believe Donald Trump is a liar. People are more likely to find they have a positive impression of Kamala Harris's ability to not stress them out. That means that most Americans believe that Donald Trump will give them stress and anxiety, and Kamala Harris won't, even as they may not care for the job she does. Kamala Harris wins on emotion. Donald Trump wins on policy. The question when people go vote is, are they making an emotional appeal or a policy appeal? The problem gets back to Tim Walz and Kamala Harris, both of them. And that problem, very straightforward, is this. They've been so sheltered from the press that when they are confronted by the press, they make mistakes. And in the narrow margins of an election only 30 some odd days away, those mistakes can add up. Multiple reporters commented after that debate last night that Tim Walz's biggest problem is he's never been confronted by aggressive questioners. And a number of them, including Jake Tapper and Dana Bash at CNN, pointed out that Kamala Harris has really been fairly guarded from aggressive questioners as well. Kamala Harris did one interview with Dana Bash. She was asked some probative questions. Every other interview that Kamala Harris has done has been with a known supporter. Tim Walz last night, his question on Tiananmen Square was a question that he should have been prepared for in some way. And instead, he stammered and stumbled. Now, I played it earlier, but I want to go back to this. Let me see if I can find it here. I had a lot of video clips, and for the record, Charlie, I've played them. Let me get to this first. This is David Axelrod, Democratic consultant, making the point about the media.
They became the nominees because that's how people get to know you. And they haven't really spent a lot of time with either of them before now. So I also think that it may be a little bit of a problem for Walz, having not done this. You know, sitting with you guys is good prep for debates. It's good batting practice for these events. Walz has not been doing it. So I do question that. I mean, you're right. He was all over before he became the nominee, when he was campaigning for vice president. That's when he turned the word weird into kind of a thing for a while on one of those interviews. So it's bewildering to me why he hasn't been out there more. And I think that Harris, too, could benefit from just being out there more.
Yes, they can benefit from being out there before. This is the Tiananmen Square one. I want to listen to this. This is an extended clip, but it's worth hearing the whole part. His answer, his stumbling, his stuttering, Margaret Brennan trying to re-engage him a second time. J.D. Vance never even has to say anything. It's so discrediting his answer.
We want to ask you about your leadership qualities. Governor Walz, you said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Yeah, well, and to the folks out there who didn't get at the top of this, look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska, town of 400, town that you rode your bike with your buddies till the streetlights come on, and I'm proud of that service. I joined the National Guard at 17, worked on family farms, and then I used the GI Bill to become a teacher, passionate about it, a young teacher. My first year out, I got the opportunity in the summer of '89 to travel to China. 35 years ago, be able to do that. I came back home and then started a program to take young people there. We would take basketball teams, we would take baseball teams, we would take dancers, and we would go back and forth to China. The issue for that was to try and learn. Now, look, my community knows who I am. They saw where I was at. Look, I will be the first to tell you, I have poured my heart into my community. I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect, and I'm a knucklehead at times, but it's always been about that. Those same people elected me to Congress for 12 years. And in Congress, I was one of the most bipartisan people, working on things like farm bills that we got done, working on veterans benefits. And then the people of Minnesota were able to elect me to governor twice. So look, my commitment has been from the beginning to make sure that I'm there for the people, to make sure that I get this right. I will say more than anything, many times I will talk a lot. I will get caught up in the rhetoric. But being there, the impact it made, the difference it made in my life, I learned a lot about China. I hear the critiques of this. I would make the case that Donald Trump should have come on one of those trips with us. I guarantee you he wouldn't be praising Xi Jinping about COVID, and I guarantee you he wouldn't start a trade war that he ends up losing. So this is about trying to understand the world. It's about trying to do the best you can for your community, and then it's putting yourself out there and letting your folks understand what it is. My commitment, whether it be through teaching, which I was good at, or whether it was being a good soldier or was being a good member of Congress, those are the things that I think are the values that people care about.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
Those democracy protests, Tiananmen Square, happened, June 3rd or 4th? Tiananmen Square massacre, 1989. It happened from April to June. June 4th, 1989. I knew it was like June 3rd or 4th because it was around my birthday, which is June 3rd, that it happened. And he said he was there. I mean, that's the very last part of this.
So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests.
But he wasn't. He wasn't. The democracy protests were started on April 15th. They ended with the massacre on June 4th. He did not arrive in Hong Kong until August. He lied on that debate stage last night. He lied. He's lied about his military service. He's lied about Minnesota's abortion law. He's lied about being in Hong Kong. He's a serial liar, pathological at this point. And he handled himself terribly. This gets to David Axelrod's point and my point as well, that candidates cannot be guarded. They need to be out there doing interviews. When I ran candidates for Congress, putting them in front of reporters on a regular basis was part of the job. You schedule time for them to go in counties. You know, most counties in this country still have small countywide newspapers. And you'd send them there and let those reporters ask them questions. You'd send them to the Farm Bureau and let the Farm Bureau ask them questions. You'd send them to local groups and have questions, and not necessarily friendly groups. You send them to groups that were curious, groups that were interested, groups that weren't hostile, but not necessarily friends, because they could ask the tough questions. And in asking the tough questions, it shaped the candidate and helped the candidate refine their answers. And Walz and Harris are not doing that. Say what you will about Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. The two of them are out there doing interviews constantly. Donald Trump will sit down with basically anyone other than 60 Minutes, and who can blame him? He will sit down with people and he will be asked tough questions, and J.D. Vance will be asked tough questions. And it has made J.D. Vance far better than Tim Walz. It has made J.D. Vance far better than Kamala Harris. These candidates need to be on the ground, and they need to be in front of reporters, and they need to be asked questions. And that they're not is their own fault. It is the Democrats themselves who did Tim Walz a disservice by sheltering him from people willing to ask questions. He has not done very many interviews at all on his own without Kamala Harris there to hold his hand. And it showed on stage last night, and that helped Donald Trump. And that's why the Democrats are having to rush out today and say, well, it doesn't matter, doesn't matter, doesn't matter. I agree it tends not to matter, but we're talking about a 50-50 race right now. It is a tied race even in the battlegrounds. So if even like 3% of people were persuaded, that's going to matter in a tied race. With the economic turmoil we've got out there right now as well, the government is running the secret war on cash. They're trying to track how you spend your money. And as people have decided, they can't track me with cash, the government's come up with creative ways to do that. Swiss America has been the trusted leader in precious metals for 40 years. They've been warning people about the secret war on cash. If you're interested in safeguarding your hard-earned assets, you need to get their report about the secret war on cash. It's completely free, and they are rated A+ by the Better Business Bureau. They can educate you on protecting your assets in their report, The Secret War on Cash. It takes less than 15 minutes to read. It can save on your retirement and your finances, and all you have to do to get this free report is use my name, Eric. When you call or text 800-289-2646, 800-289-2646. The All-Out War on Cash includes digital forms of currency. It's spreading daily. It's growing. So read the Secret War on Cash report. It is completely free. Just mention Eric, E-R-I-C-K, when you call or text 800-289-2646. That's 800-289-2646. Text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, 800-289-2646. Message and data rates may apply. Welcome back. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. Doug Emhoff is Kamala Harris's husband. Jen Psaki at MSNBC, propagandist for the Biden administration, has praised him for his redefinition of masculinity, softer masculinity. Doug Emhoff got the nanny pregnant and probably paid for an abortion. He's muddied his answer on that, but that appears to be the case. When he had cheated on his first wife, gets the adulteress pregnant, pays for the abortion, They get a divorce. He allegedly struck a girlfriend in the face while waiting in a valet line one night in France. Who among us? This is from the Daily Mail. The woman was hit across the face, called him immediately after the incident, sobbing in her cab, and described the alleged assault to the friend. The Daily Mail will not name the woman, who's a successful New York attorney. A second friend said that the woman had been dating Inhofe for 3 months, was told about the violence at the time. A third friend said that Jane first told her in 2014 that she dated Inhofe and recounted the full story of his alleged abuse in 2018, when then Senator Harris was in the news after grilling Brett Kavanaugh over sexual assault allegations. The friends, who all asked not to be named for fear of retaliation by Inhofe, shared with Daily Mail pictures of him and the woman together from 2012 and other documents and communications corroborating elements of the story. The claims follow revelations that Inhofe cheated on his first wife and mother of his 2 kids in 2008, impregnating the nanny. So he's admitted to the affair with the nanny. We don't know what happened to the kid. We presume paid for an abortion. The second gentleman allegedly confessed to the woman he hit that he paid Naylor, the person he got pregnant, $80,000, and she signed a non-disclosure agreement. Yeah, really reshaping the perception of masculinity. Isn't that right, Jen Psaki? Really. This, again, by the way, just a side note here. Abortion protects men. You get a girl pregnant, you bully her into an abortion. There are a whole lot of men in Hollywood who have done that. It appears the second gentleman of the United States might be one of those men. Abortion's not liberating. It captures you to the whims of the man. Beyond that, we have a second gentleman of the United States, a man who the left is praising for his new soft masculinity. What is that new soft masculinity? He had an affair, impregnated the nanny, paid her a bunch of money to keep her mouth shut, and then hit his girlfriend. Do you want to make him the first gentleman of the United States? Okay. I wonder if the media will speak about this. You know they would if it was a Republican. You absolutely know they would if it was a Republican. But it's a Democrat. It's Kamala Harris's husband. The Daily Mail will run the story. Will the media cover it? Probably not. But your chance putting in as first gentleman of the United States a man who had an affair, impregnated the nanny, and then hit his girlfriend. Real classing up the joint. Absolutely. Talk about the return of norms.